Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped. And today we're going a little bit off-piste. We have a magnificent lady of sport, and she really is of sport. She's one of those annoying people that is good at lots of things and gets to go and watch and talk. So I'm under a bit of pressure because today I get to interview a pro, a proper presenter, a proper quiz master, question poser. I'm looking forward to this. Been all over, very well respected, and lots of exciting things to talk about coming this summer, but a fabulous journey to talk about as well. Very, very prestigious position coming up, and also still on a high after the mighty St Johnstone claiming their second trophy of the season. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the one and the only Miss Eilidh Barbour. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
And you have just come back from being overseas, which at the moment feels like a completely different world. Talk us through your last few days.
Yeah, it was an absolute mission of form filling out to get there and to get back. But I've just been out in Spain at the Scotland national team Euro 2020 warm-up camp to do some media with them ahead of the tournament, which was good. It was great, but honestly, it's not easy. Nothing's easy these days.
And getting to spend time in a holding camp, is it interesting to see the relationships and the way they're preparing? I mean, Scotland have not been in a situation like this for a long time. So what feeling did you get leaving there?
It's really hard because they are socially distancing as well. They can only, the minute they're off a training pitch, they are following the same rules as us. So they're not interacting the way that you would normally expect. We didn't film training that day. We were there to film a whole bunch of green screen stuff, a couple of sit-down interviews, and yeah, they're kept very much in small groups, and there were I think 5 different stations within this whole setup that we were in. So there was one player at each station at a time. They were all kept very apart, and so yeah, you don't get that same feel. But obviously, when you sit down and speak to them, and we did our interviews, you can tell the excitement levels are through the roof, and they can't wait to get started. We're speaking ahead of the first warm-up game they've got tonight against the Netherlands. So
yeah,
sure they're all absolutely buzzing right now. They're now in Portugal for the game tonight. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Can't wait to watch them tonight and see what Steve Clarke puts out.
And Scotland in the past have been the opposition for other teams warming up. This is a different situation, and you're saying they're having to socially distance, but they've never prepared for a tournament like this before. So some of them don't really know any different, do they?
I know, yeah. Well, that's true, and they must all be so used to it because it's the same at their clubs. You're kept in small groups and you're sitting apart, and there's so many rules for them all to follow. So I imagine that part's not too different. But yeah, I think a few of them said, once they get into the actual camp, so when they've played their 2 friendlies, they come back to the UK, and they're going to be based down at Middlesbrough's training centre for the duration of the Euros. And I think when they get there, sort of few of them said, that's gonna feel, like it's all starting. They were having quite a bit of fun out in Spain, as well as so many of them said the training was really, really tough. But they had some golf in the afternoon. They'd been having quizzes. They'd been doing various sort of different competitions to keep them amused, and I think they were having a good time. And then obviously, as it gets closer, it's going to be a bit more of the tough stuff, I imagine.
You've been in and around the squad and professional sport, but football especially, and you've been through the journey of them qualifying. When they sit down in front of you, do they relax their shoulders because they're with Eilidh, or how's that relationship?
It's different from player to player. A lot of the players I've interviewed when they've been at Scottish clubs, the players that have played at Celtic or at Rangers or at various clubs around Scotland, I've interviewed them a lot and been around a lot when I was working as a trackside reporter. A lot of the other players I've never met before. Che Adams, Lyndon Dykes, players like that I've never spoken to. So they don't know who I am, really. I don't think. So, yeah, it depends. You know, the minute they're all a really good bunch of guys. The minute you sit down with them, you can have a laugh and a chat, and they're a pretty relaxed bunch. So, yeah, it just varies from player to player. But yeah, the ones I know, it's good to catch up with them again, because I don't see them so much when they're playing in the Premier League.
Do you feel like a player? Because you just said you've been trackside at Scottish club games, but now you've been called up for international duty and you're about to go to a major tournament. Is that how it feels? Do you think you get a similar buzz to a player?
I would say I wouldn't imagine it's a similar buzz to what they get, but definitely it's a different buzz to, like, I'm not doing a different job, but I'm in a different environment. And the Czech Republic game coming up, I mean, I just can't wait. I absolutely can't wait. And I wouldn't necessarily feel that about every single game I do, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But this is massive. This is Scotland in a major tournament, and it's something that, when I think back to where I was the last time Scotland played in a major tournament, I was at school with ambitions of perhaps one day working in the media, and okay, it's taken 23 years, but in those 23 years, like where I am now, it's pretty pinch yourself stuff, to be honest.
Where were you when John Collins scored against Brazil?
I was in my house. I had come back from school. It took me 50 minutes or something on a bus to get back from school. And I actually missed the whole build-up. I missed the anthems. I missed the opening goal because it took so long to get back from school. It was a really early kickoff.
Yeah.
And I watched it in the house, yeah.
Because I was waiting for an exam at uni. That's where we were, and the people who didn't have an exam were enjoying the build-up and were getting prepared for it, and some of us were not enjoying the build-up. Let's just put it like that. But yeah, that's how weird is it that so many have never experienced that, never seen Scotland, and are going to be able to watch it on TV, and that'll still create a buzz, I hope, but they're not going to get the news this morning, please don't travel unless you've got a ticket. There's a little bit of sadness around that, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. I mean, talking of people who've not seen Scotland in a major championship, one of the interviews I had out in Spain was with David Turnbull, and he's in the squad. Wasn't even born the last time Scotland were in a major championship. So there's players that have experienced it, and even some of the guys who would have been 2, 3, 4 years old when Scotland were there, they don't remember it. So all they've grown up with is failing to qualify, really. So but also speaking to them, and we've seen it in whether it's Rangers lifting the trophy, whether it was St Johnstone winning 2 cups, whether it was Livingston getting to a cup final. None of these big moments have been witnessed by the fans, and it does leave a hole. It leaves a massive hole. So the fact that we're getting fans in is definitely positive, but it's just a shame that we can't have full stadiums and have everything in the build up to that. When you look back at the pictures in France and the kilts walking through the streets and just all the fun that was had out there, it's a shame we're not going to see that down in London. We'll see it a bit, but not to see it in the same extent will be a real shame.
And you're going to be working with guys, I don't know if they're pundits or experts. I'm never very sure how they view the phrase of pundit, but you're going to be working with some ex-pros who never got to do that, and they were bloody good players. Do they, in a quiet moment, say to you, this lot don't know how lucky they are, or I wish that had happened to me, or we weren't good enough? Do they ever give you little gems?
I mean, I think the players know how lucky they are because the vast majority of them have never seen it happen before. So they know it's not something that comes around very often. But working the night that we qualified, I was in the studio with Darren Fletcher and James McFadden, who are two of the greatest Scotland players of the generation. Absolute, just superb football players, never turned down an opportunity to represent their country, and neither of them showed in any way any bitterness, any jealousy. They were just so happy and so delighted to see a Scotland team back at the Euros. I think they jumped higher than me in that studio picture.
That picture is one of the moments of the qualification. It's an absolute belter. I think for a while it was your profile picture, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was brilliant. And yeah, they're two of the most positive people when it comes to talking about the national team as well. I love working with them because they know how difficult it is at international level, and the team over the years has had a lot of stick. They got a lot of stick in the teams that they were in, and even Steve Clarke's early days, we didn't. I think it was 4 games, 4 defeats under Steve Clarke initially, and there were big criticisms towards how he was setting the team up, and and look what he's gone on to achieve. And those two would never, they're very realistic in how difficult international football is, and they're very positive about what Scotland are or were on the brink of achieving back then, and the squad that we have, and the coaching team that they have, and they've gone on to do something incredibly special. So yeah, no, it's been great. It was absolutely brilliant being with those two that night that we played Serbia. It was, yeah, brilliant.
One of the reasons I was desperate to speak to you is to me, you just look like you're a supporter who is very, very lucky. And I know you've quoted a couple of almost stats there. I think you know that not because it's your job, but because you're passionate about it. And that comes across when you speak to people and when you present and when you're in it. You can see how much you love it. Do you realize that?
Yeah, you have to love it, because it is, for me, it's the greatest job in the world, and because I love it, because it's a passion. But it's not always it's not always easy. I mean, I give up every weekend pretty much off the year. I might get a couple off over the summer, but when you take all the football, major tournaments, golf into account, I don't have many weekends left. And there's a lot of travel, there's a lot of being cold, there's a lot of standing around, there's a lot of the time you're not doing a lot, you're just waiting, and all of that, like I say, all of that doesn't matter to me because I love it so much. But if you didn't, all of that could be really like you wouldn't enjoy it. So yeah, you have to love it, and I'm just lucky that I do get to work on something.
We're going to get to one of the stories that I'm desperate to get to, but one of the things I want to ask before I get there is, why did you want to work in media and be involved in sport in that way and not be the person performing?
Because I was rubbish.
That's not true. That is not true, and you know that's not true.
I was not good enough. No, nowhere close to being good enough to have played any sport at any level. I love playing so many different sports, but I am pretty average at best at all of them.
But you must have made that decision early, because the story we're going to get onto, you made a pretty big career decision very young.
Yeah, and wanting to be in the media. Yeah. I think as well, growing up, I grew up in Dunkeld, and there weren't sports teams, so I didn't really know that there were national training camps for young girls, or that there were, leagues and clubs. And I played in an under 13s team in Perth. But, we didn't have sports teams. So that, and also women's sport wasn't really covered. We didn't see a lot of it. So that sort of didn't seem like an option. It didn't seem like a thing that that you could aspire to be. But the media side of it, and I think this is the story you're getting to, I remember being whatever age and watching Grandstand and Hazel Irvine coming on and presenting for the first time. And that was then something I could relate to, someone I could relate to, a Scottish female on national television talking about sport. And I thought, right, well, you can't be a sports person as a woman, or, you know, I don't have any teams around me, so I want to do what she does. I want to talk about it instead.
So you saw Hazel Irvine, and this is my favourite story about, well, that's not true. This is one of my favourite stories about Eilidh Barbour. You saw Hazel Irvine, and what did you do next?
I wrote her a letter and asked her, how do I get your job, basically? No, asked her.
And that is what I want to get to, because you thought this is a podcast, but we need a confession, because no one's seen Hazel Irvine for years, Eilidh Barbour.
She was playing the snooker.
No, I know. When she came back, I was delighted to see her, but I was also a bit gutted because I've loved giving you a hard time for Hazel disappearing. So I'm so glad that she's back safe, and I created the hashtag Hazel's back after Eilidh Barbour making sure that she was erased for a while.
Yeah, no, she was back for the snooker.
So you sent her a letter and said, I would like to do your job. And what response did you get?
I got a letter back with, the advice that, you know, to try and do some work experience, to work in university radio and stuff like that. Yeah, the kind of thing that I would probably send to anybody else who asked me for it. So, no, it was great, though, to get a response from her. And then I remember the first time I worked with her was actually at the snooker, and it was great. Yeah, you know, got to work with my hero, so big moment.
And that must be brilliant for her to get that letter, because I hope at the time she realized she was inspiring someone, that she, you know, and you probably don't realize you're likely doing that for people. You know, it's hard to tell the reach that you've got. And then for you to say you were getting to work with your hero, and for her now to watch where your career has gone, she must get a huge kick out of that. Have you spoken to her about her role in your career?
Yeah, I told her I wrote to her. So she obviously didn't remember, because it was probably about 15 years later that I said to her that I actually wrote her a letter. And I imagine she got a lot of letters from people. So we have had a chat, and obviously when I did the golf, took over the golf, her last event, I worked up, not alongside her, but I worked and sat in the studio and learned from her, and she was amazing, passing on all her little tips and knowledge, and because she's one of the most knowledgeable sports broadcasters around, if not the most. Her depth of knowledge is incredible, and she's, you know, when you work in these things, you work out little systems that kind of work for you, make it easier in a way, or, you know, help you remember things. So she passed on a few of the things that have worked for her over the years, and all that's invaluable. And yeah, it's been amazing to learn from her as well.
So what is that? Is it, oh, you need to watch her because she's a bit prickly, make sure you compliment him and that gets him on the good side? Is it to do with actual personalities, or is it to do with technique and response? And how does it work? How does the feedback go?
It's more to do with how your preparation, how you prepare, because you can't know everyone, you can't know everything, you know. It's sort of try to work out how you can have best knowledge for each day, or for each section of the day, or each interview, or each program. And it's so sort of little, whether it's like color coding, or whether it's, you know, in your notes, and just try to like work out the best way. And everybody works differently. You'll see it with commentator notes, from one commentator to another, completely different systems, but both will come out with a similar outcome, if you like. So yeah, she sort of shared a few of those kind of things, and just various places we've been to that she'd been to, and where the comes down to where the best place to get a cup of coffee or something might be, little things like that.
I love it. I think that's the BBC need to have a fly on the wall with the two of you. Next time the both of you are together, they need to do something with the two of you together. I think that would be absolutely gold. Where there's lots of skills that you need for the job you do, but one of the qualities that you must have is confidence. Where did your confidence come from to work in the media in a very exposing environment, in a challenging environment? Where did your confidence come from?
I have no idea. And a lot of the time, I think when I look back, a lot of the time I didn't feel there was a lot of confidence there. I think it was more a determination. I wanted to do this job. I wanted to continue progressing, and you kind of just had to get used to putting yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. And I think as long as I knew my stuff, as long as I knew the subject, and I felt I knew what I was talking about, I felt like that I was okay. And I think confidence is just built over time. It's more about being comfortable, and to get comfortable you have to do something a few times. If I think back or look back on early days in studio or early interviews, like there's nothing, it's not there. And even still now, when you do something, still now moments where I'll put myself out of my comfort zone, and you have to kind of fake that you feel comfortable, if you know what I mean. Which I think you probably get better at as you get a bit more experienced as well. But yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, I was never somebody who was particularly, I wouldn't get up and sing a song in front of a room full of people when I was young. I think I just tried not to think about it too much and just keep going, sort of look towards what I wanted my end goal to be.
So you were confident in your area of passion and expertise, and that gave you comfort. Did you have full sticker albums? Did you get magazines? Were you looking at stats? Were you reading about people? Where did if you want to be a footballer, you go outside and you kick a ball a lot. If you want to be a presenter, what do you do a lot when you're a kid?
Again, I don't know. I mean, I was a complete geek about St Johnstone. I had all their stats, I knew everything about them. I've still got newspaper cuttings and all these sorts of things that I used to cut out of the newspaper when I was young. And so, yeah, I was a complete geek about them. But I think I just naturally enjoyed sport, and it was something I would watch. I mean, I was watching Grandstand and all these programs on the TV, the sports scene results, the highlights, match of the day, all that. I watched all that from being 11, 12 years old. So I probably you just absorb it, I think, a bit when you're younger, and then as I realized what I wanted to do, I would always be somebody that would watch the build up. Like, I wouldn't just come in at kickoff. I would always want to watch the build up. I'd always want to watch the post match analysis. Because that was what I was interested in, as much as I was interested in the 90 minutes of football or whatever sport it was I was watching. So I guess it's just a bit of that would be what I did when I was younger. Listen to the radio, and yeah. So
being a product of your environment, it sounds to me. So who were the role models around you? So Hazel Irvine was the one on the screen, but who around you was supporting that, encouraging that, challenging that, listening to your stories? I mean, my sticker albums are here on the shelf, and the boys that I teach, they're not actually that interested in this. Well, a couple of them were flicking through them, and one of them was on his phone, and I'm saying to him, "What are you doing?" He said, "Sir, do you realize this sticker album's worth $4,000 on eBay?" And I was like, No, and I've got a multi-sport one that's got a Mike Tyson sticker in it. He says, "Sir, this sticker alone's worth £1,500." But they're my sticker albums. They're mine. They're weathered from me using them, and I loved that. I used to sit at a table and write teams and draw strips and have the manager, and so I used to. I suppose I was preparing maybe to be a coach or to be a teacher, a PE teacher in future. Who around you was encouraging you with your passion?
When I was at uni, I mean, I say it was a passion. It wasn't something that I was like, I knew what I wanted to be, but I didn't change anything when I was at school to be that, if that makes sense. I was just going through school and having fun and playing sport and, and then when I was at uni, I think it was when I was at uni, our family moved to Dunkeld and Andy Gillis was working for Five Live at the time. He was one of their senior reporters. He did a lot of producing for Five Live, and he very kindly took me to games, took me to press conferences, and then he was the one that gave me my first work experience position, which was at the Open in Troon. And I did 4 days there with them. I mean, I was watching people taking sandwiches to the guys out on the course. I was, I wasn't broadcasting, but I was meeting people and being around it and trying to learn. And through that, met John Beattie, who was, I think he was presenting. Was he? Anyway, John Beattie was there. And again, he then gave me little bits more with things that he would do over summer for Radio Scotland. And so those two in the early days were very important to me. And it's great I still see John around the place, and Andy I've seen on occasion at games down south. He still does little bits and pieces. He's moved back down to the south of England now, so I don't see him so often. But those two, particularly Andy, giving me that first opportunity were very important. And I don't know, my parents obviously they never told me to do anything else, but I don't know if they thought what could happen. I think they thought that probably somewhere down the line I would end up doing something else, but they absolutely support me 100%. And particularly when I went freelance, they were very supportive.
John Beattie is a great guy. Love Big John. Yeah. Top man. So you went to uni with the purpose of getting a degree in film and media. Was that useful with what you're doing now? Sometimes I hear people talk about their degrees and it was just a holding camp until real life started, and then other people have said, oh no, it was the learning in that time absolutely has helped. And some people saying, I learned what not to do by going to do a degree. What was your experience of your uni degree?
Well, Stirling University, where I went, had a really good film and media department, and there was an option after your first 2 years. When you went into your final 2 years, you could choose whether you wanted to do a more practical side of it, an audiovisual production part of the degree, or a more theoretical one where you did a lot of various other things, which obviously I don't know because I didn't do it. I did the practical the audiovisual production. So I spent my final 2 years at uni making documentaries, radio programs, TV magazine shows, all that kind of thing. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant, because you learn how to do a lot of the skills that I have then gone on to use. And it was, from planning to filming to interviewing to editing, sound, all of that we did ourselves. And when I went to do that work experience at the Open and various other bits and pieces, I had an understanding of how things came together, which was invaluable, to be honest, because I was able to have a bit of knowledge and ask a lot of questions around that bit of knowledge. Why do you do it like that? Why is it, which is the biggest thing for people, I say, when they go and get work experience. ask questions, like that you're there to improve your knowledge, but you're also there to make an impression. And I think because I asked so many questions, I was able to get a lot of knowledge. And then when I got various different work experience roles, I was able to actually be in some way helpful and useful, and get asked back. So yeah, no, my degree did help me. The final 2 years, the first 2 years might have been more sociable then.
Where are those documentaries and things now? Please tell me they are on that shelf behind you.
No, I mean, they might be somewhere at home, because it was back in the day of like video and stuff. We didn't just have an MP4 of it or whatever like format you would use. But yeah, so I don't have them. I think there might be one at home. I need to see if I can find it, because we did a documentary that I just loved. I'd love to watch it again, actually, because I think in my head it was amazing. But when I think I probably watch it back and go, oh my goodness, look at those edits.
I've spoken to a couple of people about things like that, and I heard Dave Allred talking about his work with Johnny Wilkinson, and when he thinks back to it, he says it was terrible, but what he was doing was the best at that time with the knowledge he had and the experience he had, and that was the best job he could do. But now he would do it differently. Those experiences that you had were crucial in shaping where you got to just now. But there's a huge element of luck in sport and in media. Is there one moment where you can see where that gave you your in?
There was a lot of luck. It was luck that Andy Gillis moved to tiny little Dunkeld in Perthshire from England. That was luck. There was so much luck along the way. Luck that I met John Beattie, that I went freelance at the time I went freelance, that positions became available when they became available. My first job was with STV at Scotsport, but when they took me on, it was in the final year of the contract, and they were like, we can give you a job for this season, but that's it. But BBC Alba started up the following season covering football, so that was luck, and I was able to get in there, and I learned so much there, because you did a little bit of everything at BBC Alba. It was a really small team we had, so yeah, that as well was luck. So little things like that have happened all the way through my career, and I think, like you say, for everybody there is an element of luck and timing, and things that happen along the way.
But you were prepared for those lucky moments that come along. So Katie Aitchison, 9 years old, writes Eilidh Barbour a letter and says, I want to do what you do. How do you respond to that now? Knowing what you know now, how would you respond to that letter?
I would say that if you're passionate about it, if it's 100% what you want to do, then work hard, meet people, learn skills, try and decide exactly what you want your path to look like. I had no idea. That was another thing. I never set out in this to be in front of a camera. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So do a bit of everything. Take every opportunity that you might get. Ask questions. Be inquisitive. Be helpful. Be confident. Show your passion. Show your knowledge at every opportunity you get, because it's now way more difficult than when I started trying to get into it. It's become now a massive there's a massive passion to do it, and I just look at, I didn't have many options of where I went to uni to do film and media and sport. There was Stirling, and then there was a broadcast journalist degree, I think, at Napier, and those were the only two in Scotland really that were around when I was going to uni. Now every university does it. There are thousands of people graduating every single year trying to get the very few jobs that there are available. So yeah, take every single opportunity and just don't let the knocks throw you off track.
And which is amazing advice, and you should be standing up in front of crowds of kids to tell them that, not just about film and media, just about any career they're going to take. At what point have you sat down opposite somebody and almost pinched yourself, thinking, like, was it? I know Peter Alice was a huge role model for you and a hero for you. You're about to go and work with Gary Lineker, who, when I was a kid, scored for England in the '86 World Cup and then went to play for Barcelona. And when I went on holiday to Spain, I got a Lineker Barcelona shirt. Like, those moments for me, and doing things like this, I've sat down and I've thought, I can't believe I'm getting to speak to these people. Has there been many of those moments for you?
Oh, loads. A lot of the time, it's funny. Like, I think when I work with people and you see them a lot, and then you go somewhere where the public are, and the public go crazy for this person, you sort of forget, oh yeah, they're an absolute legend. But it's just terrible. I mean, I love working with Ali McCoist. I mean, growing up as a Scotland fan, it was, and then watching Question of Sport, Coisty being on the telly, and now you get to hang out with him and chat football to him. It's he's somebody that's, and because he's just such good fun as well. That's somebody who I love. I sort of think to myself, I think when my mum gets excited as well, you all know that it's somebody big. So she's like, "Oh, you're working with Ali." So yeah, Ali McCoist is a good one. But there's so many people that you interview or you work alongside, and you think, oh my goodness, they're absolute legends. Thierry Henry did the Euros 4 years ago, and Vincent Kompany did some stuff as well. And Thierry Henry for me was still is one of the best players in the Premier League. So
right, come on, spill the beans. Is he that cool?
He's probably a little bit cooler and also a little bit more charming.
Is he? Because he just seems like, if you had to have a stereotypical handsome French footballer, he is it. He is just an absolute dream.
He is, all those things. He had that back, so that's why.
And there's the bit that we see, and this is something I quite often say to kids, and my oldest daughter likes to sing and dance and act and perform. But when you see the movie or the YouTube video, or you're seeing the very tip of the iceberg, there's so much has gone into what is going to be an amazing summer of sport for you. It's, I hate sounding like an old man, but it'll be gone in a flash, but enjoy it while it's there and you've worked hard for it and all. Is it those moments off the camera that maybe even mean the most, like that celebration, just you and those two people that have thrown together in this weird situation, and that's who you shared that moment with?
Yeah, definitely. It's there's so much that happens off camera, like you say. And when I look back at the last major tournament I did, which was the Women's World Cup in France, I don't remember the games. I don't really remember the studio. I remember the stadiums, and I remember, there was one that was unbearably hot. It was about 40 something degrees, and we were trying to do this game, and I remember things like that. But I remember the train journeys. I remember the bus trips. I remember traveling, with the people I was with, and the fun we had and the laughs we had. And, that is a lot of the time what you do remember, which might seem strange, but you are put together, like you say, in that group. And in a major tournament, you're in that group for 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever it might be. And you have a lot of fun in that time, and you get to know people in a different way, a lot of different ways. So yeah, and when you celebrate the big moments, you always remember where you are in certain big moments. And I always remember where I was with two absolute legends in a studio in London celebrating Scotland qualify.
You mentioned it. Coisty tells the story that he was at Wembley doing the England game when that happened, and then off camera, I think the COVID guidelines went out the window because everybody wanted Scotland to win it, and they had a big celebration. The you didn't really take me up on it at the beginning, but the more I hear, if I was to speak to a player, there's a lot of them don't remember the games. They remember the changing room. They remember the bus trip, the hotel, the nonsense. You're telling a lot of stories that are very similar to a player, and you get to perform on your stage. The people around you, do you feel like a team? If Eilidh does well, that's good for us, and you're helping them to do well.
Yeah, you are a big team. Everything has to work together. Everybody has to be on their game all the time. I suppose in that regard, it is a little bit like being a player. You can't substitute in ours, so someone's having a bad game, gotta get through it. No, it is. It is a really good team, and there are it's ridiculous how many tiny little parts have to come together to put a game of football on the telly and everything that goes around it. And again, you talk about me being passionate about it. Everybody who works in that environment is passionate about it, and everybody wants it to look and to be as good as it possibly can be. So it is. It's a really good team. Doesn't matter what team you work in. It's always a really good team of people who are all trying 100% to make it as good as possible and help each other through it. And if because you need people to help you through it as well. When you're standing up there, I've got voices in my ear. I've got my pundits. We'll help each other out. If somebody starts to kind of flag a little bit, somebody will come in and help them out, and that's kind of the way it sort of works.
I love it. The bit about helping each other. Again, you're speaking like a performer, like a team. If the right back overlaps, that means I can hit the penalty spot, and we create an opportunity. It's brilliant. It must be quite lonely though. I spoke to you a while ago, and you were about to get in the car and drive very far for a game. You spend a lot of time on your own. Mm. Is that then I'll phone mum and see how that's going, or catch up with this, or is it playlist on, or is it listening to the radio so you're filling up more knowledge? Is it a mixture?
A mixture of all those things. If it's the weekend, my mum and dad are usually playing golf, so I don't phone them. Maybe on the way home. No, yeah, a lot of I'll listen to podcasts, I'll listen to the radio, I'll listen to playlists, I'll be on the phone. Yeah, there's a lot, and during COVID, it's been a lot more than usual driving, because trying to limit public transport, and the public transport there is fairly limited in itself. So I will get the train when I can, and then you can, do a little bit of work on the way down, and then do a little bit of work on the way home for your game the next day, usually, because at the moment it's driving everywhere. It's, you're getting back at 8:30 at night on a Saturday night, and you've got to be back in a studio at 9:30 the next morning. You've got a whole program to script and everything. So weekends are pretty full on at the moment. It's a lot easier when you can start getting the train, and quite often I have company on the train as well, because a lot of the time Ian Crocker and Andy Walker will do the commentary at the same game as me, because we get all the Scottish-based people get put to the north of England usually. So quite often I'll have those two, and we have a little glass of wine on the train on the way home on a Saturday night whilst we're all preparing for our game the next morning. So yeah, I'll be glad when those days come back and I can stop driving quite so much.
See, back to being player again, having a drink on the way home after the game. It's sounding more and more like it. That's true. They've not got a game the next day. They can have more than a glass. Is golf one of the ways that you can zone out and just relax and be Eilidh that likes to play sport again?
Yeah, that's my proper relaxation. Like, phones away, and it's a weird thing. If somebody contacts me when I'm on a golf course, I can ignore it, because I know when I say to them in 2-3 hours time, oh, I was playing golf, it's acceptable. Whereas if you just ignore somebody because you can't be bothered dealing with work at the moment, it's people think, well, why are you not getting back to me? But to be on a golf course is an acceptable excuse not to get back straight away, I always think. So that's my switch off. Outside, fresh air, your mind is completely on what you're doing, good conversation. Yeah, that's my absolute switch off. I absolutely love it.
And do you get invites to pro-am competitions and golf days and things like that you like to nod your head and say yes to?
Oh yeah, always say yes to those. Always say yes. No, it's a shame again last year with everything going on. The pro-ams didn't happen. So hopefully there'll be a few this year that maybe we can do. But they're brilliant. I played in a brilliant one actually last summer in Castle Stewart, Royal Dornoch and Nairn, were the 3 courses over 3 days, which was one of the sort of few events that went ahead. Probably because I think at the time up there they were in level 1 or level 0 or whatever it was up in the north, so they were able to put something on, and it was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I always say yes to those lovely little invites that might come along.
Can Hazel Irvine play golf?
Yeah, very well apparently. I've never played her, but yeah, she's a golfer.
Who are the other female amateur golfers? I know Eve Muirhead likes to swing a club. Jenny Faulkner's quite often on Instagram posting pictures of rounds of golf and playing in with Greg Laidlaw and various others. Who else is worth it?
Yeah, Eve's very good. She always wins at Pitlochry. My mum's a member at Pitlochry, and Eve's always winning the Ladies Open up at Pitlochry. So she's very good. Jenny's very good. Ebony Rainford Brent, the cricketer, she's a good golfer. Rachel Brown-Finnis, the former England goalkeeper, I played with her. She's a good golfer as well. Claire Balding plays a bit.
Of course.
There's a fair few. I'm probably missing people out. Shelley Kerr, she's a good golfer.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a fair bunch of us now playing, which is good.
How long before you write a book in the way Claire Balding's written some books? Are we going to see an Eilidh Barbour series?
No, I don't think so. Not yet. I'd have to find something to write about first.
Surely that wee girl from Dunkeld has got a story to tell. Bill McLaren tells a story that when he would be organising events outside his house and he would sit on the wall and commentate, but his pals were the ones that were actually doing it. Are there moments of Eilidh interviewing her pals on the walk home from playing sport or on the bus?
No, I don't think so. Like I say, I never really changed it because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Really, I knew I wanted to work in sport and talk about it. But in terms of what I wanted my role in the media to look like, I was never really sure. I started off behind the scenes editing, putting together highlights packages and things like that. And it just sort of all evolved. So, I wasn't really somebody that did all that, which is a shame because I know some of my commentator friends who've all done that kind of thing. They still got their tapes, refused to let anyone hear them.
They'll be unearthed at some point. Now, another bit that intrigues me about you disappeared to South Korea.
Yeah.
With the intention of why not, or was there a purpose, or?
There was method to my madness. I taught English in South Korea in a tiny little village in a private academy. But at the time I'd finished uni, I'd had those little bits of work experience and things. I'd had a couple of paid jobs through John Beattie and, finished uni. And that was me now trying to get into the industry I wanted to work in. I was living in Edinburgh. I was working in a temp job to pay the bills and stuff, but Edinburgh wasn't a great choice. It's quite an expensive city to live in. I'm sure you know, when you've just come out of uni and you suddenly have things like council tax to pay. So I was working this temp job, but I was having to work sort of 5-6 days a week to make ends meet. And then the only way I could get work was to work for free, because it's regulated a lot better now. But back then, you didn't have runner jobs as much. Everything was sort of, the work experience person's essentially the runner, so you didn't get paid because you were on work experience. And I couldn't do enough to get me known. So I went to South Korea for a year with the sort of idea of earning a lot of money, being able to come back, not work for however many months. I think I ended up managing about 6 months on the money that I'd brought back from South Korea, and just use that time to do work experience. I did volunteer work at the Rugby World Cup when they had a couple of games at Murrayfield. I did anything and everything I could, email people, met people, phone calls, all those sorts of things, and until I eventually got the job at STV doing Scott Sport.
That's determination.
Yeah.
That is outrageous determination. And South Korea, I mean, that's brave. That's not the usual backpacker destination. It's not even probably the usual let's go and teach English destination. Why on earth South Korea?
I knew the people who had taught in the school the year before, and they'd sort of said, listen, you'll make a lot of money here, because it was rural. So you had your kids' classes. We taught every morning. I taught in South Korea's largest nuclear power plant to teaching the head guys.
So you were teaching the South Korean Homer Simpson what button to press in English if the instructions came in English.
No, it was even better than that. Teaching the South Korean Monty Burns, isn't it? The guy that runs the plant. Yeah, I taught the manager, the general manager of Reactor 5 and 6, and his 2 deputies, because they were getting a massive review undertaking of the plant, which happens, I don't know how often, but it all happens in English. So they wanted some English teachers to come in for a couple of hours every morning and teach. Not so much teach, it's more to make them comfortable with speaking English, because they could, even Mr. Kim, who was in his 60s, I think, had a grasp of English, which is incredible when you think, living in the UK, so few of us have much of a grasp of any language, as I remembered when I was in Spain at the weekend.
Dos cerveza, por favor. That's about it. So, South Korea, do you think any of those people have watched the golf and seen Eilidh and thought, hang on?
I know, I have no idea. I'm still in touch with one of the English teachers that worked in the school, a girl called Sai, who now lives in Canada. So we're Instagram friends. So she'll have an idea of what I'm doing, I'm sure, from Instagram. But whether she's seen any of it, I have no idea. I tried to catch up with her when I was in Canada for the Women's World Cup 6-7 years ago, whenever it was. But unfortunately, we didn't go anywhere near where she was. So that was a shame.
Yeah, it's a hell of a big place, Canada, isn't it?
Yeah.
So all of these events that you've been to, FA Cup, but I don't know. The pinnacle for me would be the Olympics. How was your Olympic experience?
Well, it was Winter Olympics. It was back in South Korea. So I was able to go back and have some more kimchi and that kind of thing. No, it was good. It was good to go back to South Korea, actually. And but it was brutally cold. It was minus 32, I think, the day we arrived. Minus 27 most of the time we were there. We had an outdoor studio. So no, it was again, it's one of those things. I look back on it. At the time, it was really hard, but definitely the hardest thing I've ever worked on, without a doubt, for so many different reasons. But I always look back on it, and the group that we had on site there was brilliant, and we had such a good laugh. And again, if you don't have good people on these kind of tournaments and events, particularly when you're there for a long time, then you're going to struggle. But no, really good people, and Britain did pretty well, which was good. We had some medals. So, yeah, I really, I do look back and I learned so much from that couple of weeks that I was out there.
Olympians, if you have the Summer Olympics, you can line up who the pundits are going to be and who the commentators are going to be. Winter Olympians are a different breed, though, aren't they? Some of them are mad as a box of frogs, and they do sports that are nobody pays any attention to for 4 years, and then new sports arrive that nobody even knew existed, and you become an expert when you're watching on TV. How much did the pundits make that a really interesting experience, which must have been quite different for you from what you're used to?
Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi just broke up a little bit there. I didn't quite get that whole question. I think I got that some of the Winter Olympians are as mad as a box of frogs. So
yeah. So that experience, that Winter Olympic experience, to me seems quite different from the Summer Olympics. The culture around the Winter Olympics is different, isn't it? And does that make for a different show? Does that make for a different team and environment?
Yeah, I mean, I've never done a Summer Olympics, but certainly the Winter Olympics, there are some real, when you start getting the sort of freestyle guys, and I mean, great fun. Unfortunately, they were based in a different part of the sort of Olympic setup to us, so I only saw them when they came into studio, and such good fun. And again, still catch up with them on social media and stuff from time to time, and they were really good fun. But yeah, they unfortunately weren't based where we were, but it's a different thing because the environment's so challenging that, again, it's that whole thing of you've got to have a passion for it, because nobody would put themselves into minus 27 and stand outside and be happy. Like, it's that you have to have a different, I think. But we had so much fun on that Winter Olympics. We really did. And again, it doesn't matter what event you're working on. When you're stuck together and you're traveling France, we traveled all over France. We did a game one day, we traveled the next day, we did a game the next day, we traveled the next day. We did that constantly for the whole of the Women's World Cup. And we didn't travel in luxury by any stretch of the imagination. One night we did a game one day, a game the next day, and we traveled on a bus for however many hours it was through the night. And we got to the next venue, and I mean, we were all running on empty, and you have to go up there and present a game of football and stand in a studio with, and the pundits have to analyze the game, and we have to make it look like we're as fresh as we were the day we arrived, when you're really, really not. And again, it's the group that gets you through it. It's so yeah, I'm lucky to have such good people.
When have you lost it? When have you just either ridiculous, immature giggles, or you can't believe what the person's just said, or when have you?
Possibly on that overnight bus. when and I'm going to name and shame here, when Lucy Ward started singing to herself, didn't realise that any of us were listening, and she was actually singing "Donald, Where's Your Trousers?" No idea why.
Yes.
I actually started filming it. It was it's still on my phone. It makes me laugh to this day.
And those are the little brilliant moments, like you said. They're not necessarily on camera, they're not shared with the millions watching, but they're the moments that still make you laugh.
Yeah.
I love it. So you've got an unbelievable summer coming up that I think you'll probably be pinching yourself. What's your expectations? Let's start with the Scotland squad. What do you think they can do?
I think they can go beyond the group stage. I think the way that the tournament's set up now, I think one win is enough to qualify to the last 16. I think Scotland can do that. I'm hoping it's in the first game against the Czech Republic, simply because that's the one I'll be there for. That's the one live on the BBC. No, I don't care who they win. 3 draws can be enough. I'd obviously love them to pick up something down at Wembley, but that's always going to be a tough ask. But a wee sneaky draw there would be lovely. but yeah, I think we can win one of our 3 games minimum, and that I think will be enough to get to last 16.
Do you realise that if that happens, you will go on forever because of the historical significance of that event? That
Yeah.
what you say and do will be played for on every Scotland highlights package forevermore. Because that will be the first.
Yeah. Well, it'll happen on ITV, unfortunately, because BBC only have the first game. But if that's the game where they get the points, then yeah, perhaps. But listen, I just love to see them do well and yeah, get some points on the board and hopefully we can get into that last 16. And again, I don't think it's an impossible dream to think that we can get to the knockout stages.
No, I certainly hope not. But I've thought that for many, many big tournaments with Scotland. What does the future hold for Eilidh? Scotland want to qualify out the group. What's the moment where you'll get your gold medal, or what would be the gig for you?
There's no one thing. You just want to constantly progress, constantly be pushing yourself, putting yourself outside that comfort zone, and working on big events. This is massive for me. These Euros, Scotland being there, the role that I have across the Euros. This is huge for me. There are big tournaments to come. I've never worked on a Summer Olympics. I've never worked on a men's World Cup. You've got the Women's Euros coming up as well, which would be amazing to be part of yet again. So yeah, there are lots of big events, lots of big tournaments, lots of big jobs that currently other people do, but possibly won't do forever. So to have yourself in the mix when these positions may open up is where I want to be, and I just love what I'm doing now. But yeah, you've got to be ambitious and aim high, and dream big, I guess. So we'll see what happens.
I love it. Now, Warren Gatlin has to pick a Lions squad. Steve Clarke has to pick a Scotland squad. You're sitting with Shelley Kerr, who's had to pick squads over a decent period of time for Scotland. How does the conversation go? Are you watching your phone, waiting for the phone call about the Euros, or is your agent in negotiation about the next big gig? How does it work for somebody in your role?
Yeah, I don't sit and wait for things. I think my agent does a lot of work behind the scenes and constantly puts my name forward for things. And for me, it's just about making sure that everything I do is progressing me and that I'm always developing. And that, yeah, it's difficult through the season, the way contracts work and the way sports can move from one channel to the other, and all these various different things that can happen throughout the season. And you ultimately have to look after your sort of season, if you like, because you need to make decisions that will give you security for the next 2 or 3 years. A summer tournament's amazing, but it's 3 weeks out of 4 years essentially. So it's difficult to balance everything, which is why I have somebody who can sort of deal with a lot of that and help me out and make decisions that may mean that you do something for 4 years, but you miss out on a summer tournament, or it may be that you decide you work for this one because the summer tournament's going to come up and that's what you really want to do. But, so there's a lot of balancing and there's a lot of trying to, you never know if you make the right decision, basically, until you get there and you see how things progress. But so long as I'm working, developing and, enjoying it all, I'm happy.
Okay, I love it. Now I've got 2 things left, and this one, the phone call comes for Strictly Come Dancing. What do you say?
Get me on it.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Brilliant. That's exactly the answer I wanted. I think that would be gold, absolute gold. And last, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy speaking to you when we met through the Doddy Weir Foundation stuff, and it's always been great. So thank you so much for giving up your time. But we asked the guests at the end to finish the sentence, and I'm intrigued as to where this one is going, although I think I might have a little idea. So for you, Eilidh, happiness is?
Right now, it's lying on a beach in the sun with a pina colada in my hand.
Okay, I'm lying.
Because
That was
last year
nowhere
we
near.
what was yours?
I thought it
What
was
did
going
you
to be
think?
something to do with a golf course, or it was going to be something to do with Scotland qualification. So you completely foxed me there. Happiness is on the
All those.
beach with a pina colada. I love it. Eilidh Barbour, thank you so, so much and all the best. Have a great summer. Brilliant to see you.
Thanks, Bruce. See you soon.
See you soon. I love speaking to Eilidh, and so many things that we hear from so many of the guests about being passionate, following your dreams, looking after the people around you, being ambitious. And I think she said at the end about dreaming big, and she certainly did with that letter to Hazel Irvine. Desperate to speak to Hazel Irvine and ask what she thinks about Eilidh. Pretty sure she'd be nice about it because let's face it, she is a tremendous lady and she is going to go for the stars. And I think there will be gold medals coming her way very, very soon. Thank you very much for listening. You can catch us on Spotify, Acast, and Apple. You can also watch on Facebook and YouTube. Please subscribe, tell your friends, leave a review if you've enjoyed it. Leave some comments of future guests if you think you've got a great idea and you think they would maybe say yes to spending an hour blethering away to me. Thank you very much for being here. I love it. My name is Bruce Aitchison, and my happiness is egg-shaped. Speak to you all again soon.